The engine's running fine. That's what makes this so easy to miss. It's humming along, powering the fridge, the lights, maybe a window unit, and underneath that steady sound, something inside the block is quietly wearing itself down to nothing. No warning light, no smid, just a machine slowly killing itself while it does exactly what you asked it to do. Most people don't lose a generator in one dramatic moment. It's not usually a bang or a fire. It's a slow bleed, a few bad habits, repeated over months, until one day the thing that always started on the second pull just doesn't anymore. And by then, whatever's wrong is usually expensive. There's a reason Japanese technicians treat small engines with a kind of respect that looks almost excessive to outsiders. Walk through a maintenance shop in Japan, and you'll notice machines get wiped down, logged, checked on a schedule, even when nothing's obviously wrong with them. It's not superstition. It's the understanding that a small engine has maybe a dozen ways to fail, and 11 of them are preventable if you catch them early enough. The 12th one, you just can't do much about, but 11 out of 12 is a pretty good trade. So this isn't going to be a video about buying a better generator or spending more money on a bigger unit. It's 7 specific habits, things you're doing right now, probably without thinking twice about them, that are shortening the life of the machine you already own. Some of these take 30 seconds. One of them might make you a little uncomfortable because there's a decent chance you're doing it every single time you use the thing. We'll start with the one that kills more generators than almost anything else, and it has nothing to do with fuel, oil, or how old the machine is. It has to do with what happens in the 30 seconds right after you shut it off. Most people flip the switch and walk away. The engine's still hot, the exhaust is still ticking as it cools, and there's a chemical process happening inside the carburetor right at that exact moment. One that, over enough repetitions, turns a perfectly good fuel system into a clogged one. It's the single most common reason a generator that used to run great suddenly won't start at all. And fixing it costs nothing. It just means changing the order you do 2 things you're already doing. Here it is. When you shut a generator off right after it's been under load, the engine is still radiating serious heat. The cylinder, the muffler, and especially the carburetor are all sitting well above normal operating temperature. Cut the ignition at that moment, and there's no airflow left to carry that heat away. It just soaks upward into the carburetor bowl, and whatever fuel is sitting in there starts cooking. The lightest, most volatile parts of the gasoline evaporate first, right there in the bowl, leaving behind a thicker residue that settles into jets barely wider than a human hair. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Pull the load off first, unplug what you're running, or flip off the breaker, and let the engine idle unloaded for 2 or 3 minutes before you shut it down. That gives the cooling fan and the airflow around the engine time to pull the heat down before everything goes still. It's the difference between parking a hot pan straight into a sink of water and letting it cool on the stove first. One shocks the system, the other lets it settle. Second habit, and this one's sneakier because it feels responsible instead of careless. Topping off the tank with whatever gas happens to be in the can, then letting the machine sit for months. Ordinary gasoline, especially anything blended with ethanol, doesn't sit quietly. It starts breaking down within weeks, pulling moisture out of the air as it ages, and by the 3 or 4 month mark, what's left in that tank isn't really gasoline anymore in any useful sense. It's closer to a thin varnish waiting to happen. Japanese equipment manuals are almost obsessive about this. They'll specify a fuel stabilizer by name and tell you exactly how many months a tank can sit before it needs to be run dry or drained entirely. It's treated as basic upkeep, not an extra step for the paranoid. A capful of stabilizer mixed in before storage, or simply running the tank empty if you know the machine won't be used again soon, keeps that slow chemical decay from ever starting. Third one hides in plain sight, and it's the oil. Not skipping changes. Most people know better than that. It's using whatever oil was closest on the shelf, regardless of what the engine actually calls for. Small engines run hotter relative to their size than a car engine does, and they're far less forgiving of the wrong viscosity. The wrong oil doesn't destroy the engine in one run. It just slowly reduces the paper-thin film of protection between metal parts, run after run. until where that should have taken a decade happens in 3 years instead. Fourth thing, and it's almost too obvious to suspect, the air filter. Most generators live outside, or half outside, a shed, a garage with the door open, a corner of the yard during a storm. That means the intake is constantly pulling in dust, pollen, cut grass, whatever's floating around. A dirty filter doesn't just choke the engine and rob it of power. It forces the engine to run on a fuel mixture that's richer than it should be, which means unburned fuel washing past the piston rings instead of burning cleanly. Over time, that thins the oil and scores the cylinder wall. A 5-minute check, foam filter tap clean, or paper one swapped out, and none of that happens. Fifth is the one people get genuinely wrong, and it's math, not maintenance. Every generator has a running wattage and a surge wattage, and the two numbers aren't remotely close. The surge number, the big one printed on the box, is only available for a second or two, just long enough for a compressor or a motor to kick on. Run a generator anywhere near its running limit for hours, especially in the heat, and the windings inside the alternator start cooking from the inside. There's no smoke, no smell, just insulation slowly breaking down every time you push it past what it's actually rated to sustain. Add up the fridge, the window unit, a couple of lights, and check that total against the running number, not the surge number, before you plug in one more thing. And sixth, the mistake almost nobody thinks of as a mistake at all. Buy an emergency generator and then genuinely treating it as something you only touch during an emergency. It sits in the garage for a year, sometimes two, completely untouched. Rubber gaskets dry out and crack. Seals lose their shape. The battery, if it has one, drains down to nothing. None of that shows up as a problem until the one night you actually need the thing and it won't turn over. The habit that fixes this costs about 10 minutes a month. Start it. Let it run under a small load, a shop light, a fan, anything for 15 or 20 minutes. That's long enough to circulate the oil, keep the seals from drying out, and confirm the machine still works while you've got the luxury of it not maturing yet. It's the same logic behind why a car that's driven occasionally tends to outlast one that sits in a garage untouched for years. Machines built to run don't do well sitting still. That's 6. The 7th one is different from the rest. It's not about what you do to the generator. It's about where you put it. Generators cool themselves the same way an air-cooled motorcycle engine does. Fins cut into the cylinder, spinning air across them to pull heat away. That only works if air can actually move. Push the machine into a corner, tuck it against a wall to keep it out of the rain, surround it with boxes or a tarp draped too close, and you've just choked off the one thing keeping that engine from cooking itself on the outside in. It'll still run. It'll just run hotter than it was ever designed to every single time, and hot metal wears faster than metal that's allowed to breathe. There's a stricter version of this rule that matters even more, and it's not about the engine's lifespan. It's about the people standing near it. A generator has to run somewhere with real, open airflow, never inside a garage with the door cracked, never in a basement, never anywhere close enough to a window or vent that exhaust can drift back in a house. Carbon monoxide has no smell and no color, and by the time anyone notices something's wrong, it's already too late to fix casually. If there's one rule on this list that isn't negotiable, that's it. Everything else here is about protecting the machine. This one's about protecting you. Beyond that, distance and shade do the rest of the work. A few feet of open space on every side and out of direct afternoon sun, if you can manage it, keeps the whole unit running closer to the temperature it was engineered for. It's a small thing. It's also the difference between an alternator that lasts 15 years and one that starts struggling at year 6. Quietly, the same way everything on this list fails. Not with a bang, but with a slow erosion nobody notices until the machine just isn't what it used to be. None of these 7 habits cost real money. A cool-down period before shutoff, stabilized fuel, or an empty tank in storage, the right oil on schedule, a clean filter, respecting the running wattage instead of the surge number, a short monthly run under load, open air on every side, far from anything enclosed. None of it needs a mechanic, a new part, or an upgrade. It's just the difference between using a machine and actually taking care of one which is more or less the whole idea behind how these things get treated in places where they're expected to last for decades instead of a few rough winters. If you got a generator sitting in the garage right now, it's worth walking out and checking two things off this list before you need it again: the fuel and where it's sitting. Those two alone catch most of what goes wrong.